Old is gold. Well, that's my perspective when it comes to romance. Welcome to episode 3 of It's a Luxury Mindset. We are coming into the month of love, where some partners tend to go the extra mile. So, as a little sneak preview, I had chosen this topic, and also because I am all for old school typed love and romance. A flower bouquet in hand, love letters, dancing together, waiting for each other at the doorstep. Ah, the 90s was undoubtedly a beautiful phase for old school sweethearts. The digital era has definitely changed our perspective, but if you are one of the lucky ones to date an old school romantic, or you are an old school romantic, then you're in for a treat. Before we get started, I just want to say sometimes we need to understand that it's not always about gifts or being spoiled. Yes, it's needed in a relationship. However, it's sometimes about not letting each other go to bed upset. Or especially if you're a female, it's when you know you have someone genuine, it's him not letting you go to bed upset. Or when you know he's not at fault, it's you not letting him go to bed upset. When you see that he's patient when you speak and listens attentively. He treats you delicately from the way he treats and touches you. We have to keep in mind that social media only shows us a part of life, and no one knows what goes on behind that scene, just like fairy tales. And we do get so caught up in it. However, we have to realize that we can create our own moments and memories because it's each to their own partner. Now, back to the 90s love era. The 5 languages of love: words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, acts of service, and physical touch. Now, we may not all be able to show some of these as we have long distance relationships, but there are still many ways to make it special for each other. And effort does mean more than grand gestures. It sometimes comes down to taking initiative when doing things for your partner or your significant other. Gifts, chocolates, and flowers are great, most definitely. But if there's not much effort put to it, then does it really mean anything? If you know it's his or your favorite flowers or favorite chocolate, then you know there was effort and thought put into it. It could even be something that's in your favorite color. Sometimes sharing a home-cooked meal, such as a bowl of noodles, could make an old school romantic happier than a 5-star restaurant because they prefer whatever is being done, you do it wholeheartedly. And you'll realize it doesn't take grand gestures to impress them because they always look at the tiny details. The stereotype about romantics is that we need flowers and chocolates and to be continuously swept off our feet. That is extremely unrealistic. Instead of a bunch of flowers and you just picked one randomly, it would most probably be dried up and kept to show your kids when you are older because that's how much the one may mean to them. Or a date night where you cook your very favorite meal is so much more impressive than going to a 5-star restaurant or simply just opening the car door for your lady. Now, in this situation, many prefer it, where some don't. You have to keep your partner's preference in mind. Being an old school romantic doesn't always mean breaking your bank. There's a difference between being materialistic and valuing sentiments. Let's take, for example, texting. Yes, it is fine, but should it be all? Well, old school romantics believe that texting is good because it's a form of communication, especially when you're in a long distance relationship. However, talking on the phone, hearing each other's voice, or just calling to say I love you can lighten up their day like no other. And if we look at another one, casual dating, that is a huge no. Even though many people now prefer casual flings over serious ones, which could work for them. However, your old school loving partner will never be a part of that bandwagon, because what they crave is commitment, genuineness, and honesty in the relationship. It isn't a game to them. Rather, all they want is to be accepted for what they are. And trust plays a huge role, because if you mean a lot to them, they would trust you with their entire heart. Now, old school romantics love possibilities instead of being naive. Wanting to go for love every time doesn't mean that they are foolish or lack experience. They probably have been hurt, and trust me, this speaks volumes. They probably have been hurt in the past, but they still choose love over laid-back bonds. And you'll notice, these people focus on the good rather than thinking about what can go wrong again. And the last one would be, which I think is saving the best for last, is the cheesiness. However, I think it is the most sweetest thing ever. The 90s era romantics are a sucker for cheesy stuff. Whether it is reading with each other or dancing hand in hand, nothing beats such cheesy, sappy stuff. I never realized how cheesy I was until this exact moment. However, it's okay if you do not share the same taste as your partner, who may not be a romantic individual. It can be each to their own in how they choose to show gestures towards someone they love. And being their partner, you would understand that while the world may not, because they can feel elated with even the smallest of things. One of the best things about loving the 90s is even the tiniest of things, like a handwritten note that says how much you love them, can fly them over the moon. Seriously, it can. And by the end of this, I realized why I have such a love for it. Because it's basically love in its purest form. Effort, time, and gestures never go unnoticed. And the most outstanding part is never giving up on that person that you wanted to build a life with. And there are circumstances when looking at that statement, but that was the best part about love in the 90s. And now we're going to look at 3 basic tips upon a little research if you're still dating, newly engaged, or newly married. The first one is, one person shouldn't always be making plans. You both should. Be it a simple date or just a short drive, both people should work hand in hand. Secondly, never forget the moment that you first fell for each other and the reason why. So let's say, for example, you're having an argument, and it's a heated argument, so you both took time apart to calm down. And now you're in such a negative space because you're thinking, why are we arguing with each other? But if you stopped for a moment and realized why you fell in love with your partner, you'll see that there's a chance in making it work at that exact moment, because time is so short that we need to value every second of it. And lastly, never forget that your partner is your best friend. So, if you have a ton of stories to tell them, a funny dance or just a shoulder, don't ever forget that you always have them and that they are always there for you. Question time. If you are an old school romantic, what are 2 things that you would want to bring back into this era? If I was asked that question, I would say handwritten letters, 100%, and maybe the simple, thoughtful gestures, the tiny ones, and that comes from the heart. So, thank you guys so much for listening. Tune in next Friday for episode 4, and this topic is quite a surprise.